coworker Jess got to the hospital at 7:22 a.m. She'd driven 40 minutes in a snowstorm. My mother got the call at 7:33. By noon, she still hadn't left the house. I didn't know any of this while it was happening. I was too busy trying to figure out why the ceiling tiles kept multiplying. The accident happened on the Queensway at 6:48 a.m., a Tuesday in February, the kind of cold that makes your car door creak when you open it. I was heading into work early because our quarterly audit was due Friday and I was the only one on my team who actually understood the new reporting software. The pickup truck that ran the red light didn't care about any of that. The driver was later charged with impaired driving. He walked away with a bruised shoulder. I woke up in the trauma bay at the Ottawa General with a nurse named Daisy asking me if I knew what day it was. I said Tuesday. She smiled like I'd passed a test. "You're doing well," she said. "You have a fractured pelvis, a broken wrist, and some bruising around your spine that we're monitoring. We're going to need to run more scans." I tried to sit up. She stopped me with one hand. "Don't. I mean it." My mouth tasted like copper. I asked about my car. She said they'd tow it. I asked about my phone. She said it was in a bag with my things. I asked if my family was there. She paused just a half second too long. "Your emergency contact was called. A colleague of yours arrived about an hour ago. She's in the waiting room. Would you like me to bring her in?" What I wanted to ask was, where is my mother? Where is my father? Where is my brother? I said yes. Jess came in, still wearing her coat, her scarf half unwrapped, snow still melting in her hair. She looked like she'd run a red light herself just to get there faster. Her eyes went red the second she saw me. "Oh my God," she said. "Oh my God, Sophie." She pulled a chair to the side of my bed and sat down without being asked. She didn't say you'll be fine. She didn't say everything happens for a reason. She just sat there and let me be in the state I was in, which at that moment was somewhere between terrified and deeply confused about whether I had feeling in my left foot. "Your mum called back," she said after a few minutes. "She said to tell you she's coming. Just that she had some things to sort out first." Some things to sort out. My brother Kieran's restaurant was having its soft opening that Saturday. The one I'd lent him $60,000 to help finance. The one my parents had spent the last 4 months treating like the moon landing. The reservation system, the staff training schedule, the menu tastings. I'd heard about all of it in detail at every single family dinner, while my own life, my lease renewal, my promotion application, my physiotherapy for the knee injury I'd been dealing with since October, went completely unmentioned. My parents were in Kingston helping Kieran prep. They'd driven down Thursday to spend a long weekend getting the space ready. The soft opening was Saturday. The accident was Tuesday. Jess stayed for 2 hours. She called my landlord to let her know what happened. She called my office and spoke to my manager. She found out which pharmacy was closest to my apartment and wrote down the address in case I needed it later. She did all of this without being asked, without making it feel like a favor. Just quietly and practically, the way competent people do things when they care. My parents did not come Tuesday. The orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Osei, came by late afternoon to explain the fracture. Pelvic fractures ranged in severity, he said. Mine was significant but stable. No surgery required if I stayed immobile. I'd need to be in hospital for at least 5 days, probably 7. After discharge, I'd need someone with me at home for a minimum of 2 weeks. No driving. No stairs, if avoidable. Very limited mobility. "Is there family who can help with that?" he asked. I told him yes. I lied. My mother called at 6:30 that evening. "Sweetheart, how are you feeling?" Her voice had that warm, slightly distracted quality it got when she was multitasking. "I have a fractured pelvis," I said. "They said I need to stay here until at least Sunday." "Oh, the doctors are always so cautious. You know how they are. Listen, your father and I are going to try to get there as soon as we can, but things are a little complicated right now. Kieran's produce supplier just cancelled and we've been on the phone all afternoon trying to sort it out. And the opening is Saturday." "I know when the opening is, Mum. I paid for the restaurant. I didn't say that last part out loud." "I know, sweetheart. We know this is terrible timing, but you're in good hands there. The nurses are wonderful at those hospitals. And you said yourself there's no surgery. There might be complications. The bruising near my spine. Dr. Osi says it's precautionary monitoring. You said so yourself. She'd been listening. She just decided none of it changed the calculation. We'll be there Sunday. Right after the opening. We'll drive up first thing Sunday morning and we'll be with you all day. Just 2 days, honey. You're strong. You've always been the one who handles things. I said okay. I don't know why. Habit, probably. 28 years of being the one who handles things. She hung up. I stared at the ceiling. Adesea came to check my vitals around 7 and must have seen something in my face because she didn't leave right away. She adjusted my IV, checked my blood pressure, then sat on the edge of the chair by my bed. No family tonight. My parents are in Kingston. My brother has a restaurant opening Saturday. They're helping him prep. She nodded slowly. Not with judgment, just acknowledgement. You will be alone on this floor, she said. I'm here until 7 a.m. I do rounds every hour. You press that button for anything. Anything at all. She patted my hand before she left. I cried for a while after that. It made my pelvis hurt, which made me cry more, which made it hurt worse. Eventually I stopped because I was exhausted and the medication was pulling me under, and I didn't have enough left in me to keep going. Wednesday. My father called in the morning. Brief, businesslike. He said they were thinking of me. He said the produce situation had been resolved. He said Kieran was nervous about the opening and they needed to be there for him. He's worked so hard for this, Sophie. You know how much this means to him. I know. And you're going to be fine. You're the tough one. Always have been. The tough one. I'd been hearing that my whole life. Kieran was the sensitive one, the creative one, the one who needed protecting. I was the tough one, which in practice meant I was the one nobody worried about. I was the one who could handle it. I was the one who would be fine. My wrist was in a brace. I couldn't lift my water cup without wincing. I was fine. Jess came again Wednesday afternoon with a bag from the Bridgehead on Bank Street, a decaf oat latte, a blueberry scone, a novel she'd grabbed from my apartment because she still had the spare key from when I'd had that plumbing emergency last spring. She also brought my laptop charger and my work badge because she knew I'd want them eventually even if I shouldn't use them yet. She stayed an hour. We talked about nothing important. It was the best conversation I'd had in weeks. That evening, Adea's found me staring at my phone. Kieran had posted an Instagram reel of the restaurant, the dining room lit up warm gold, the bar set with glassware, my parents visible in the background hanging a piece of art on the feature wall. My mother was wearing a new blouse I'd never seen. My father had gotten a haircut. They looked good. They looked ready. The caption read, "Almost time. Grateful for everyone who believed in this dream." He tagged my parents, not me. The $60,000 I'd transferred in 2 installments over 8 months was not mentioned. Daisy saw the phone. She didn't say anything. She just checked my chart and asked if I needed something for the pain. I said yes. Thursday. My pelvis hurt less, but my wrist had gotten stiffer, which Dr. Osei said was normal. Physical therapy started. Gentle repositioning, breathing exercises. The humiliation of needing help with basic things. The physiotherapist, a young guy named Brett, was kind in an efficient way that I appreciated. Still no parents. Adea started my shift at 7. Around 10 a.m. she mentioned, carefully, that someone had dropped something off at the nurse's station the night before. A small paper bag. Inside was a tin of loose-leaf tea, a pair of wool socks in a colour I actually liked, and a card that said only, "You don't have to be strong right now." No name. I assumed it was Jess, but Jess texted me that afternoon, asking how I was doing, and mentioned she was bringing more food on Friday, which meant she hadn't been in the night before. Who left it? I asked Adaze. She got a careful look on her face. A woman. Maybe mid-60s. She didn't leave her name. She asked how you were doing, and we told her you were stable. She said thank you and left. I don't know who that is. Adaze nodded. She came last night too, she said. Stood near the hallway for a while. Didn't come in. That's strange. People process things in different ways, she said. She didn't sound like she thought it was strange at all. That night, I lay awake thinking about it. Someone who knew I liked loose-leaf tea. Someone who knew wool socks in that particular dusty blue were the kind of thing I'd actually use. Someone who'd been there 2 nights in a row without coming in. Friday. My parents called at 11 to say the soft opening had gone beautifully. Reservations were filling up. One reviewer from a local food blog had already reached out. Kieran had been remarkable, charming every table, exactly the way they'd known he would be. My mother's voice was high and warm with the particular joy she saved for Kieran's victories. "We're so proud of him," she said. "All that hard work." "I'm glad," I said. "And you're doing well." I walked to the bathroom unassisted. "But you're feeling better. When are you coming, Mom? We'll leave Sunday morning. Early. We'll be there by early afternoon at the latest." "Okay. Oh, and sweetheart," Kieran wanted me to ask. "The bar program isn't fully stocked yet, and there's a supplier he needs to pay before end of week or he loses the order. He's a bit short. Could you e-transfer him $800? Just to get through the launch weekend. He'll pay you back once the revenue starts coming in." The line went so quiet, I thought the call had dropped. "Mum, it's not a big ask, honey. You know how cash flow works in restaurants. He just needs to get through the first few weeks. I'm in the hospital." "I know, sweetheart. That's why I hate to ask." "But it's Kieran." I hung up. Not dramatically. I just pressed the red button and put the phone face down on the blanket. A daze came in 20 minutes later. She didn't ask what happened. She took one look at my face and sat down. "They asked me for money," I said. She didn't react. Which, somehow, was the kindest response she could have given. She said, "I want to tell you something. And I want you to know I'm saying this because I've been doing this job for 14 years and I see a lot of families. What's happening here, it isn't normal. It isn't something you have to accept. They're my family. I know." She folded her hands. "The woman who's been coming at night. She came again last night. She was here until almost midnight. She left something else at the station. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a card. The handwriting was careful, like someone who'd written the same sentence several times before settling on this version. I have no right to be here and I know that. But I couldn't stay away. You deserved better than this. You always did. I'm sorry I wasn't able to give it to you sooner. Me. I read it 3 times. I don't know anyone whose name starts with M, I said. Adazi raised her eyebrows slightly. She came again tonight. She's in the waiting room right now. She asked if you were awake. I told her you were. I told her I'd ask if you wanted to see her. My heart did something odd. Who is she? She won't say her name. But Sophie, she's been here every single night. Every one. She knows which room is yours. She stands in the hallway and she doesn't come in and she leaves and comes back the next night. Whatever this is, it's not casual. I thought about my parents in Kingston, probably asleep, rested, satisfied, proud of Kieran's beautiful restaurant unbothered. I thought about Jess driving through a snowstorm because she was my emergency contact, and she actually showed up. I thought about a woman standing in a hospital hallway for 4 nights running, leaving wool socks and loose-leaf tea and cards with no name, turning around and going home. "Send her in," I said. Adaisi left. I did something I hadn't done since the accident. I reached for the comb in my bedside drawer and ran it through my hair. My wrist protested. I did it anyway. I don't know why. Some instinct about meeting someone who had apparently been carrying something heavy for a very long time. The door opened. She was maybe 65. Slight build, grey hair cut short. The kind of face that looked like it had been kind for a long time and tired for longer. She was wearing a burgundy coat, and she stood in the doorway exactly the way Adaize had described, like she was calculating the cost of crossing the threshold. Her eyes were dark, like mine. "Sophie," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. "That's me," I said, like an idiot. She almost smiled. "I'm Margaret. She stopped, took a breath, started again. "I'm your father's older sister. I'm your aunt." The room did a slow tilt. "I don't have an aunt," I said. Your parents would tell you that, yes. She stepped in, just one step, as if she wasn't sure she'd be allowed further. I've been out of your life since you were 9 years old. Your father asked me to leave, and I left. And that's the decision I've regretted every day since. 9. I tried to remember being 9. I had one memory of a woman at a Christmas dinner who laughed loudly and brought a chocolate Yule log and argued with my father about something I was too young to understand. I thought she was interesting. I'd never seen her again. Why? I whispered. Because I told them the truth. She came to the chair beside my bed and sat carefully, like she was asking permission just by doing it. I told your mother and father that the way they were raising you and Kieran was going to damage you, that they were building a boy who expected the world to hand him things, and a girl who'd spent her life handing it to him. Your father told me I had no business in his family. That was the last conversation we had for 19 years. I've been following you from a distance. Not intrusively. Just making sure. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, opened it to a page near the middle. I have your work address. I followed the announcement when you passed your CPA designation. I was at your convocation in the back row. You didn't know. She paused. I know that sounds strange. It does, I said. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to come forward. You didn't know I existed, and I had no right to walk into your life and claim something I'd walked away from, even if I was pushed. But when I saw the news report, there was a note about the accident in the police scanner, your name, the intersection. I couldn't stay away anymore. I drove from Guelph that night. Guelph. She'd driven from Guelph at what must have been 2 a.m. to stand in a hospital hallway and not come in. Why didn't you come in? She looked at her hands. Because I didn't know if you'd want me to, and I didn't want to make something that was already terrible into something more complicated. So I came, and left things, and came back, to be near in case you needed someone, and to stay out of the way in case you didn't. My eyes were burning. I hadn't cried properly in days because crying made my pelvis ache, but something was loosening. They're not coming, I said. My parents. They haven't been here once. My brother's restaurant opens Saturday. They're in Kingston. They asked me for $800 today while I was lying in this bed. I know. Margaret's voice went very quiet. I've been watching your family for a long time, Sophie. I watched them take from you. Not once or twice, systematically. I watched you pay for things that were never your responsibility and get nothing back. Not gratitude, not presents, not basic acknowledgement. I watched your brother's life get funded by yours while everyone called him the creative one and called you the reliable one, as if reliability is a substitute for being loved. My hands were shaking. I hadn't noticed until now. I have $60,000 in the restaurant, I said. I know. I've been keeping track. Why would you keep track? She looked at me steadily. Because someone had to. She reached into her bag again and took out a folder, the kind you get at a pharmacy with a clasp closure. Inside were printouts, statements, a document that looked like it had been drawn up by a lawyer. When your grandparents died, she said, your grandfather left a portion of the estate to me with the instruction that it be passed to you when you were ready. Your parents contested it. There was a settlement. She paused. Part of that settlement included an account your parents were supposed to hold in trust for you. I stared at her. They didn't tell you about it. She said it flat, not a question. I suspected as much. I had my own lawyer look into it last year. The account still exists. It's in your name now. It was always in your name. They just never gave you the information to access it. There's roughly $84,000 in it. It's yours. It has always been yours. The number landed somewhere I couldn't quite process. That's almost exactly what I gave Kieran. Margaret closed her eyes for a moment. I know. We sat with that for a while. The monitors beeped. Somewhere down the hall, someone was being paged. Then she said, I know this is a lot. I know I don't have the right to walk in here and append everything. But you're lying in a hospital bed and your parents are in Kingston, and I've been standing in the hallway for 4 days because I couldn't think of another way to be useful. So I'm going to ask you something and you can say no. Okay, when you're discharged, let me take you home, to Guelph. My house is on 1 level. I have a spare room. I can work remotely. I have nothing happening that matters more than this. I thought about my apartment on the third floor. No elevator. The stairs I wasn't allowed to climb. I thought about my parents who were going to arrive Sunday. Theoretically, in theory, probably, if Kieran didn't need them for something. I thought about a woman who had driven from Guelph in the middle of the night to stand in a hallway for 4 days because she didn't know if she was wanted but came anyway. Okay, I said. Sunday came. My parents arrived at 2:30 in the afternoon, which was later than they'd said, and they brought Kieran, which I hadn't expected. My mother carried a plant from the grocery store, the kind with a bow on it. My father had a Tim Hortons bag. They stopped short when they saw Margaret in the chair by my window. What is she doing here? My mother's voice dropped into a register I recognized, the one she used when something had gone wrong with a plan she hadn't announced. She's my aunt, I said. She's been here since Tuesday. Margaret stood, but didn't move toward them. Kieran looked between us. His face did several things in quick succession. Sophie, my mother said carefully, I think we need to talk privately. You can say whatever you need to say in front of her. That's not appropriate. She's been here, Mum, every night. While you were getting the produce orders, she drove from Guelph the night of the accident, and she's been in this building every single day since then. So whatever you need to say, you can say it here. My father looked at Margaret. Something passed across his face that wasn't anger. It was more like fear. You have no right, he said. Margaret said quietly, I know. I've had no rights for 19 years. I've respected that. But I have a right to be wherever Sophie wants me, and right now she wants me here. No one said anything for a moment. Then Kieran said, Sophie, listen, I know this looks bad, the timing was terrible, but the opening was really important, and I know, I said. The $60,000 told me how important it was. He stopped. I need you all to hear something. I'm going to be discharged in 2 days. Margaret is going to take me to Guelph to recover. I'm going to be there for at least 3 weeks, possibly longer. When I'm well enough, I'm going to make some decisions about my finances and my relationships. And I want to be very clear about one thing. My mother started to say something. I'm not done. I will not be lending Kieran any more money. Not $800, not $8. The $60,000 is gone and I've accepted that. But there will be nothing more. Sophie, my father started. You weren't here. You were my emergency contact and you were not here. A co-worker who has my spare key for plumbing emergencies was here. A woman who I didn't know existed was here. You were not. It wasn't that simple. It was exactly that simple. My mother's eyes filled. She said, everything we did for this family. I know, I said. I know you believe that. When they left an hour later, Kieran stopped in the doorway. He didn't look angry. He looked something closer to ashamed, which I hadn't expected. I didn't know she was asking you for money, he said. When you were in here, I didn't know she called you about the bar stock. I wasn't sure I believed him. But I wasn't sure I didn't either. That's something, I said. He left. Margaret came and stood by my bed. You did it, she said. I'm shaking, I said. I know, you did it anyway. The next 2 days were easier and harder. Easier because I stopped waiting for a call that wasn't coming. Harder because stopping something you've been doing for 28 years leaves a strange silence behind. Doctor Osei discharged me Tuesday morning with a binder of instructions. No driving for 6 weeks. No stairs. Physiotherapy 3 times a week. Follow-up in 10 days. He shook my hand, the good one, and said I'd done better than he'd expected. Margaret's car was a sensible Subaru with heated seats. She had a cooler bag in the back, with food from the good grocery store on Stone Road, not the discount one. She'd put a foam cushion on the passenger seat without mentioning it. We didn't talk much on the drive. She put on a CVC program and let the music do the work. Her house was a bungalow in a quiet neighborhood, backing onto a ravine. The guest room had been rearranged, bed frame raised, everything I'd need at waist height, a small cart on wheels with a basket for carrying things one-handed when I needed to. She'd borrowed a shower chair. She'd printed the physiotherapy exercises Dr. Rosie had faxed ahead and taped them to the bathroom mirror. She'd been planning this since she heard about the accident, she told me later. Just in case. My parents called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. My mother said they were worried. She said she hoped I was somewhere safe. She said she wanted me to know they loved me and that everything they did was for the family. She said she hoped I wasn't making any permanent decisions while I was upset. I listened to it once and deleted it. Kieran texted 2 days later, not asking for money, just asking if I was okay. I said yes. I didn't say anything else. He didn't push. That surprised me a little. The 3 weeks at Margaret's house were the strangest weeks of my life, and also, in some ways, the most restful. I hadn't rested, truly rested, without a work task waiting or a family request incoming or a financial decision looming in years. I didn't know what to do with it at first. I'd lie in bed in the morning after my pain medication and watch the light change on the ceiling and feel vaguely guilty for not doing anything. Margaret noticed. She started leaving books on my bedside table. She never asked if I'd read them. She just left them. A novel, a collection of essays, a Canadian poet whose name I didn't recognise but whose work made me feel understood in a way I couldn't explain. We talked in the evenings, over dinner, which Margaret cooked with quiet efficiency. She asked about my life, not the resume version, the real version. What had I wanted to be when I was small? What had I stopped wanting? Why? I used to want to be an architect, I told her one night, before I switched to accounting. What happened? Kieran had this idea for a renovated studio space, and my parents thought it was brilliant, and they enrolled him in a design program at Sheridan for the summer. Then my father said there wasn't money for architecture school for me too, and accounting would be more stable. What happened to Kieran's design program? He did 1 semester and dropped out. He said it wasn't really his thing after all. She put down her fork. Sophie. I know. She said, you can still go back to things, you know. Not to architecture, necessarily, but to yourself. To what you wanted before everyone needed you to want something else. I thought about that for a long time. At the end of week 2, Margaret sat me down at the kitchen table and walked me through the documents. The estate account, the trust documents, my grandfather's original letter of intent. It was all real, all verifiable. My lawyer, Jess had recommended hers, confirmed it within 3 days. $84,217. Sitting in an account that had always had my name on it. I called my mother, not to reconcile, to ask one question. Did you know about the account? A long pause. Sophie, the estate situation was very complicated. Did you know? There were taxes and legal fees, and your father thought it was better to. Did you know that money existed and not tell me while you watched me give Kieran $60,000 of my own salary? The pause this time was different. Smaller. Answering. I see, I said. I hung up. I blocked her number 3 days later, after she called 11 times and left 4 voicemails. My father's calls, I let go to voicemail and then deleted without listening. Kieran texted once, asking if we could talk. I said not yet. I meant it. Not yet, not never. He was the only one of them who might be salvageable. I wasn't sure. I was willing to find out eventually. I went home to Ottawa 6 weeks after the accident. Jess helped me move some things, brought dinner, stayed for 2 hours. Ardace had left the hospital by then, but she'd written me her personal email address on a card tucked into my discharge paperwork. Drop me a note sometime if you want to, she'd written. I hope things get easier, I wrote to her. She wrote back, we're not friends exactly, but we're something. I think about that sometimes. The network of people who showed up for me that month. Jess. Brett the physiotherapist who celebrated small wins with genuine enthusiasm. Dr. Osei, who shook my good hand on discharge day. Adaisy. Margaret. None of them were required to be there. All of them were. My manager, when I came back to work part-time in week 7, called me into his office and asked how I was really doing. I said better. He said the department had missed me. He said he'd noticed over the years that I had a tendency to take on more than my share, and that he wanted me to know that wasn't a requirement of the job. It was a thing I had been doing to myself. I cried in the car afterward, quietly, without pain this time. At week 10, I made an appointment with a therapist. The first session was mostly crying and explaining the family dynamics and then crying more. She said, this kind of pattern, being the family's financial and emotional stabilizer, while being treated as the least important person in the family, has a name. It's learned. And it can be unlearned. It was the most expensive $48 I'd ever spent. I booked the following week immediately. I started sketching again. Not architectural drawings, just shapes. Buildings I liked. Space that felt good. It went nowhere and meant nothing, but my hands felt better doing it. I used part of the estate money to clear my small remaining debt, put 6 months of expenses in a savings account at Meridian, and sent a check to a legal aid clinic Margaret volunteered with. I liked how that felt. My mother found my work address 8 weeks after I blocked her. She sent a letter. I am your mother, and whatever mistakes we made, cutting off your own family is not something you'll be able to live with. You will regret this when we're gone. Kieran needs you. We all need you. That is what family means. I showed it to my therapist. She asked what I felt reading it. Sad, I said, and clear. I feel sad and I feel clear, both at the same time. That's growth, she said. Kieran reached out 3 months after the accident. He asked if he could visit. I said yes. 1 hour, public place, no money talk. He agreed. We met at a cafe on Elgin Street, and he bought the coffee without asking who was paying. He said, I didn't know how bad it was. I knew they favoured me. I didn't know. He looked at his cup. I didn't know it was that bad. What they were taking from you. I didn't know how to answer that. He said, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I think I've been a version of myself that I don't want to keep being. I'm glad, I said. We didn't hug when we left. But we texted the following week. Small things. A meme, a weather complaint, a question about a podcast. Something tentative that might, over a long time, become something real. I'm not holding my breath. But I'm not closed off either. Margaret and I talk every Sunday. She comes to Ottawa once a month. We went to a gallery opening together in March, and she introduced me to her friends as her niece, straightforwardly, like it was always true. Because it was. It always was. 7 months after the accident, I got a significant promotion. I negotiated the salary properly for the first time in my career, with an actual number prepared and everything, because my therapist had made me practice out loud for 2 sessions. I got within 3,000 of what I asked for. I used some of it to register for an evening course in urban design. Not because I'm going back to architecture. Maybe because I'm going back to something. I'm not sure yet. I'm allowing myself to not be sure. My mother sent a birthday card in the fall. It arrived with a short note, hoping you're well, thinking of you. Still your mother, still here. It wasn't an apology. But it was different from the other letters, smaller, somehow. I put it in a drawer instead of the recycling. I don't know what that means yet. What I know is this. I got through a fractured pelvis in a hospital bed with no family in the building. And I did not collapse. I got through my mother asking me for money while I couldn't walk to the bathroom. I got through being the reliable one, the tough one, the one who handles things, until I was too broken to handle one more thing and found out, finally, that I didn't have to. A woman who I didn't know I had drove from Guelph in the middle of the night. A co-worker in a snow-covered coat showed up before my mother did. A nurse named Adai sat with me in the dark when she didn't have to. These are the things that held me. I think about the 28 years I spent making myself smaller and more useful, funding dreams that weren't mine, carrying weight that wasn't distributed fairly, doing it all without complaint because that's what the tough one does. I don't do it anymore. I still have the card Margaret left at the nurse's station. The first one, with just a handful of words and a letter she hadn't earned the right to sign yet. I keep it in my wallet, behind my health card, in the spot where I used to keep a note of Kieran's outstanding total so I could update it every time I sent another transfer. You don't have to be strong right now. I wasn't. I'm not always. And I turned out fine. There's something I've had a lot of time to sit with since that February. The way consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive as silence. A phone that doesn't ring. A chair by the hospital bed that stays empty. My parents made their choice the morning of my accident, and they made it quickly, without much deliberation, which told me everything I needed to know about how deeply it had already been made, long before that Tuesday. I used to tell myself the situation was complicated, that families are messy, that love comes out sideways sometimes, that I didn't have the full picture. It took lying in a bed I couldn't get out of, being asked by my mother to e-transfer $800 to my brother while I couldn't walk to the bathroom, to understand that I had always had the full picture. I'd just been choosing not to look at it straight on. What Margaret did, driving from Guelph in the dark, standing in a hallway she wasn't sure she had the right to stand in, leaving wool socks and tea, and a card with one sentence on it, that was a kind of moral clarity I hadn't seen up close before. She didn't do it because she was owed anything. She didn't do it to be thanked or acknowledged. She did it because she'd made a promise when I was 6 hours old, and she'd decided, 19 years after being cut out, that the promise still stood. That's not sentiment. That's character. It's rare and it's real, and it looks nothing like what I'd been told love was supposed to look like. I think about Jess a lot too. She drove through a snowstorm because she had my spare key and my name in her phone as someone who might need her. She didn't wait to be asked. She just came. And I think about what it means that the people who showed up for me that month, a co-worker, a nurse, a physiotherapist, an aunt I didn't know I had, all did it without being obligated to. They did it because they looked at the situation clearly and made a decision. That's intelligence working the way it's supposed to. Not just knowing what's right, but recognizing it in real time and acting on it anyway. The hardest part wasn't cutting off my parents. The hardest part was sitting with the fact that I'd spent 28 years being quietly courageous in the wrong direction. I'd had the resilience of someone who could carry anything. I just hadn't understood yet that carrying everything alone wasn't strength. It was a habit I'd mistaken for a virtue. Real resilience, I'd come to think, isn't about how much you can absorb. It's about whether you can change course when the evidence tells you to. It's about getting up. Literally, in my case, with a fractured pelvis and a physiotherapist named Brett counting my steps and deciding the next chapter gets to be different. I still have the first card Margaret left. You don't have to be strong right now. I read it sometimes when I forget. It reminds me that the bravest thing I did that year wasn't blocking my mother's number or walking away from $60,000 I'd never get back. It was letting someone in. Letting Margaret sit in that chair. Letting Jess bring me coffee. Letting myself be the one who needed help for once, without apologizing for it. That's the thing I want to hold on to. Not the anger, not the grief, not the accounting of everything I gave and didn't get back. Just that I let people in. And the people I let in were worth it.